Thomas Wagner had exactly 5 minutes to decide. Follow Protocol 47B from Norway's Wildlife Rescue Manual, or break every rule to save a life. The choice he made that freezing morning of January 23, 2019 nearly cost him his own. But before I tell you what happened, let me show you something. 1 year later, security cameras captured the same lynx Thomas had rescued, doing something no scientist has ever been able to explain. The animal stopped. It looked directly into the lens, at the exact spot where Thomas used to walk, and made a gesture you must see to believe. This story, documented by the Helena Kovac Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Trondheim, studied by 3 European universities, forever changed the way we understand the bond between humans and wild predators. The Bergfjell forest in northern Norway is one of the harshest places on Earth during winter. That morning, the thermometer read -23 degrees Celsius, the kind of cold that freezes your breath before it, leaves your lungs, the kind of cold that turns every step into a battle against ice-packed boots. Thomas Wagner, a forest ranger for 15 years, knew every inch of those 1,347 square kilometers. But at exactly 7:42 a.m., something unexplainable pulled him off his regular route. Later, he would describe it as a nameless urgency, a gut feeling that he needed to be somewhere else. And what he found in the next few minutes is something that only 0.0% of people on this planet will ever witness. In their lifetime, the sound reached him first, not the familiar crack of branches under snow, nor the sharp wind tearing through the pines. It was primal. A sound that triggered every survival instinct Thomas had sharpened across 15 years in the wild. It was the guttural lament of a dying predator, the kind of sound animals make only when all hope is gone. Following the noise for 320 meters through knee-deep snow, Thomas finally saw it, a young Eurasian lynx, barely 40 pounds, trapped in a professional carbon steel snare. The kind of trap set by poachers for the black market fur trade, where a single lynx can sell for thousands of euros. The steel wire had cut deep into the lynx's hind leg, slicing through tendons and muscle, scraping bone. Blood had frozen into dark red crystals, painting a grotesque pattern in the snow. Its golden eyes, half shut from shock and hypothermia, met Thomas's gaze. And in that frozen instant, something passed between man and beast that defied explanation. It wasn't fear, it wasn't aggression, it was recognition. Later, Thomas would describe it with one word: understanding. The lynx seemed to know. Its only chance of survival had just arrived. Thomas had 2 options. Both could kill him. The first, follow strict protocol, call for backup, and wait at least 45 minutes. The second, break every rule, strip himself of Arctic protection in -23 degrees, and try to save a wild predator with his own hands. His gloves shook as he unzipped his 5-pound Arctic jacket, his only shield against hypothermia. The polar air stabbed his skin like needles of ice. He knew he had 15 minutes before his own body would start shutting down. But then he looked again at the lynx and saw something that made him continue, a frozen tear clinging to the corner of the animal's golden eye. With precision learned in 15 years rescuing wildlife, Thomas wrapped the trembling body inside his jacket, creating an improvised thermal cocoon. Within 30 seconds, the lynx's breathing doubled. The ranger's body heat was pulling the predator back from death's edge. But now Thomas himself was racing against the clock. He worked barehanded on the illegal Chinese snare, every second losing more sensitivity to frostbite. His mind began to fog with the first signs of hypothermia. He bit his tongue until it bled just to stay conscious. 4 minutes and 37 seconds. That's how long it took him to cut the steel. When it finally snapped, the lynx let out a low, trembling sound. Not pain, not fear, relief. And then something happened no scientist has ever explained. Instead of pulling away, the lynx pressed its head against Thomas's chest, a deliberate gesture, as if acknowledging his sacrifice. Thomas, shaking and nearly delirious, whispered to the animal about his failures, about the moose he couldn't save years ago, and about the vow he once made. Never again would he choose protocol over life. The lynx answered with a broken, almost purring rumble, a sound that kept Thomas awake even as his own body began to fail. Thomas radioed Maria Anderson, his partner ranger, 11 kilometers away. Even at full speed, she'd need 19 minutes to reach him. But Thomas knew the truth. In 19 minutes, both he and the lynx could be dead. So he sat in the snow, clutching the animal closer. And then the unbelievable happened. The lynx shifted, pressing its warmest body parts against his exposed skin. It was impossible, a wounded predator choosing to share heat with a human. Yet it was happening. As the cold dragged him toward unconsciousness, Thomas began to hallucinate. That's when the lynx made the sound again, a deep, rhythmic vibration between 25 and 50 hertz. Scientists later confirmed those frequencies trigger endorphin release and reduce pain in mammals. Somehow, instinctively, the lynx was helping Thomas survive. At 8:24 a.m., Maria arrived, 3 minutes early, risking her own life racing across the ice. She found Thomas nearly frozen, lips blue, voice broken, but still pointing at the lynx, begging her to save it first. Both were loaded into the rescue vehicle. Both were on the edge of death. At the Helena Kovac Rehabilitation Center, 2 patients arrived that day. 1 man, 1 predator, both critical. The lynx's temperature, 93 degrees, minutes from organ failure. Thomas's, 93.5 degrees, minutes from cardiac arrest. 6 professionals worked for 3 hours on the lynx. Illegal serrated traps had shredded its paw. But during surgery, something astonishing happened. Whenever Maria replayed Thomas's voice from her phone, the lynx's vital signs stabilized. When Thomas woke 6 hours later, his first word was, "Lynx." Both had survived. But what happened next would shock the scientific world. The lynx, now named Frost, reacted with aggression toward every staff member. Growls, bites, defensive stances, all except one, Thomas. When he entered the enclosure 3 days later, the predator that had nearly died in his arms simply sat, calm, watching him with golden eyes. For the first time in history, a wild lynx seemed to recognize, trust, even thank a human. 6 weeks later, Frost had healed, strong, ready to return to the wild. But the bond with Thomas was undeniable. Scientists needed proof. Would Frost survive alone, or was he now compromised by human attachment? The test released Thomas inside the enclosure. No barriers, no protection. At first, Frost circled wide, predatory, calculating. Then he stopped. He tilted his head and made the same low, rhythmic sound he had once used to keep Thomas awake in the snow. And then, in a moment, caught. Forever on film, Frost rolled onto his side, exposing his belly. For a predator, the ultimate sign of trust. Thomas extended his hand, and Frost pressed his forehead gently into his palm. The scientific community would call it unprecedented. Thomas called it something else. Family. On March 23, 2019, Frost was released into the wild. At first, he walked away confidently into the snow. But then he stopped. He turned, and for one long moment, his golden eyes locked on Thomas. And then, Frost let out a call. A long, echoing cry lynxes use only to call family members across distances. Thomas raised his hand in silent farewell. Frost tilted his head, then vanished into the trees. That footage has since been watched over 500,000 times around the world. Frost survived. Thrived, was later seen with a mate and 3 cubs of his own. But the story didn't end there. Trail cameras repeatedly caught him passing along Thomas's patrol routes, always stopping, always looking directly into the lens, as if making sure his rescuer knew. I remember. Scientists now study the Frost Protocol, a rescue method allowing rangers to act immediately in critical situations. Hundreds of animals have been saved since. And Thomas? He still patrols Bergafjell, still breaks illegal snares, still tells this story in schools across Norway, because he knows one thing with absolute certainty. That day in 2019, when he chose compassion over protocol, he didn't just save a lynx. He discovered the truth that unites us all. Compassion has no borders between species. Somewhere in the forests of Norway, a lynx with a scar on his paw still roams, free, fierce, wild. But every time Golden Eyes meet a camera, every time his descendants pause instead of attacking, one truth remains. A bond formed in 5 frozen minutes, proved stronger than time, distance, or even the wild itself. This, my friends, is proof that compassion leaves ripples far greater than we will ever know.